The separation of powers, often imprecisely and metonymically used interchangeably with the trias politica principle, is a model for the governance of a state. The model was first developed in ancient Greece. Under this model, the state is divided into branches, each with separate and independent powers and areas of responsibility so that the powers of one branch are not in conflict with the powers associated with the other branches. The typical division of branches is into a legislature, an executive, and a judiciary. It can be contrasted with the fusion of powers in a parliamentary system where the executive and legislature are unified. Separation of powers, therefore, refers to the division of responsibilities into distinct branches to limit any one branch from exercising the core functions of another. The intent is to prevent the concentration of power and provide for checks and balances. History. Antiquity. Aristotle first mentioned the idea of a mixed government or hybrid government in his work Politics, where he drew upon many of the constitutional forms in the city-states of ancient Greece. In the Roman Republic, the Roman Senate, consuls and the assemblies showed an example of a mixed government according to Polybius. Early modern bipartite systems. John Calvin favored a system of government that divided political power between democracy and aristocracy. Calvin appreciated the advantages of democracy, stating, "It is an invaluable gift if God allows a people to elect its own government and magistrates." Quote, "In order to reduce the danger of misuse of political power, Calvin suggested setting up several political institutions which should complement and control each other in a system of checks and balances. In this way, Calvin and his followers resisted political absolutism and furthered the growth of democracy. Calvin aimed to protect the rights and the well-being of ordinary people. In 1620, a group of English separatist Congregationalists and Anglicans founded Plymouth Colony in North America. Enjoying self-rule, they established a bipartite democratic system of government. The freemen elected the General Court, which functioned as legislature and judiciary, and which in turn elected a governor, who together with his 7 assistants served in the functional role of providing executive power. Massachusetts Bay Colony, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania had similar constitutions. They all separated political powers. Books like William Bradford's History of Plymouth Plantation were widely read in England, so the form of government in the colonies was well known in the mother country, including to the philosopher John Locke. He deduced from a study of the English constitutional system the advantages of dividing political power into the legislative on the one hand, and the executive and federative, responsible for the protection of the country and prerogative of the monarch, on the other hand. Montesquieu's tripartite system. The term tripartite system is ascribed to French Enlightenment political philosopher Baron de Montesquieu. In The Spirit of the Laws, Montesquieu described the separation of political power among a legislature, an executive, and a judiciary. Montesquieu's approach was to present and defend a form of government which was not excessively centralized in all its powers to a single monarch or similar ruler. He based this model on the Constitution of the Roman Republic and the British constitutional system. Montesquieu took the view that the Roman Republic had powers separated so that no one could usurp complete power. In the British constitutional system, Montesquieu discerned a separation of powers among the monarch, parliament, and the courts of law. Montesquieu did actually specify that the independence of the judiciary has to be real and not apparent merely. The judiciary was generally seen as the most important of powers, independent and unchecked, and also was considered dangerous. Checks and balances. To prevent one branch from becoming supreme, protect the opulent minority from the majority, and to induce the branches to cooperate. Government systems that employ a separation of powers need a way to balance each of the branches. Typically this was accomplished through a system of checks and balances, the origin of which, like separation of powers itself, is specifically credited to Montesquieu. Checks and balances allow for a system-based regulation that allows one branch to limit another, such as the power of the United States Congress to alter the composition and jurisdiction of the federal courts. Both bipartite and tripartite governmental systems apply the principles of the separation of powers to allow for the branches represented by the separate powers to hold each other reciprocally responsible to the assertion of powers as apportioned by law. The following example of the separation of powers and the mutual checks and balances for the experience of the United States Constitution is presented as illustrative of the general principles applied in similar forms of government as well.